Hi writers, I run School of Plot. I was able to take the account from 0 to over 280,000 followers in just under a year and a half. This has been without posting every day, showing my face, bothering strangers in their DMs, taking out paid ads, doing giveaways, or getting shoutouts. It's all in the content. While I'm incredibly grateful that my content resonates well with my audience, I got to this point by following a pretty simple roadmap and I want to share it with you. This advice applies to all writers, traditionally published, self-published, anyone who writes but it hasn't been published yet, and actually also people who want to begin their writing journey. So if any of those apply to you, please get cozy and grab a cup of tea and a notebook because although I'm going to be efficient, this video will be long. In this video, I'll give you structured advice about how to grow your writer Instagram account without getting burnt out or making yourself feel uncomfortable by dancing to trending audios if that doesn't feel authentic to you. I'll include things like SEO, monetization, which apps to use, how to develop your personal aesthetic, how to create posts, and how to manage content planning. I have a digital marketing and copywriting background, so I'll avoid rattling off the same advice that everyone always gives. I've got some really good stuff in the viral reels section of this video, for example, and I'm also going to debunk some popular advice that I personally disagree with. At the end, I will answer your frequently asked questions. So, why should writers be on Instagram? Honestly, you don't need to build a social media presence, especially if the thought of it is torturous to you. I know a lot of industry insiders highly recommend having a social media, and I don't want to discount that because I'm not in the publishing industry. But I mean, I've seen people succeed without social media. I will say social media can really help you in quite a few ways. If you're going down the independent route, having an audience will lead to more exposure, meaning more book sales and a bigger, more engaged readership. Also more reviews. I've noticed quite a few indie authors also ended up getting traditional book deals because their self-published novels went viral. I know this used to be a thing in the publishing industry where if you'd self-published a novel, there was a black mark on that and nobody would touch it after, but books keep going viral and then getting picked up by absolutely massive publishers these days. Imagine getting all that organic traffic to your novel through your social media without paying for expensive ads. If you want to get traditionally published, your audience size can also be a positive factor to include in your query letter. You can say you have an account about your story that 60,000 people are following. 60,000 people already care about your story. That's nothing to scoff at. Same applies for non-fiction writers. It shows agents and publishers that there's a demand for your expertise. A big audience is also a great way to get feedback. If you're looking for beta readers or you want to use Instagram stories to poll your audience on title ideas, cover ideas, and so on, then a bigger audience helps with that. If you're a writer looking to make some additional income, you may sell copywriting, ghostwriting, beta reading, or editing services or something like that. If you sell them on Fiverr, you're competing with thousands of others who may offer prices that you might consider unfairly low. If you build a social media following, you're able to offer your services on your own terms instead of competing in an oversaturated marketplace. Finally, posting about your writing is fun. For example, I make interactive writing workbooks, so my Instagram is about writing tips, and I love posting them. My workbooks took months to put together, and I'm really proud of how many people they've helped. I love sharing that. Posting about your project, your novel, your characters, your world, sharing it with everyone online is honestly really fun. If you decide Instagram is something you want to do, stick around and maybe take some notes. Of course, you don't have to be this intense about it if you're just going to be posting for fun, without growth in mind. I really respect that, so please do feel free to ignore the advice in this video if it doesn't resonate with you. So, personally, I love content creation. I started my career off as a freelance writer and I took on a lot of jobs like copywriting, content writing that sit under the digital marketing umbrella. I was able to use this experience years ago to approach a digital marketing agency who liked my writing and were willing to train me in digital marketing and SEO. I've since done a lot of social media work and I'm excited to share my knowledge with my fellow writers because marketing is a valuable and often misunderstood skill and it can be pretty fun. If you're not into videos and you just want pure implementation, I've linked you to my website down below, schoolofplot.com. You can get a bundle of everything you'd ever need to start your Instagram page as a writer, from a comprehensive Notion template to my exact 100-page strategy. It's not as daunting as it seems, and it's a very easy, structured roadmap that puts you in full creative control. It was important to me to make something that was fun, accessible, and easy to implement, sort of plug and play. So you'll also get with it a Notion template, a brand sheet template, a media kit template, a bunch of other stuff. I do believe in the importance of free content too, which is why I made this massive video as a comprehensive introduction to Instagram for writers. I hope you brought snacks. Let's dive in. We're going to start with the essential foundation and my favorite topic, Instagram SEO for writers. SEO stands for search engine optimization. Don't click away, I promise it's fun. When we talk about Instagram, we call it SMO, social media optimization, but I'll stick with SEO for this video because I think it's a term that most people are used to. SEO is basically a way to get more eyes on your content by appearing in search results. Now, there's a pretty widespread misconception that Instagram is ruled by something called the algorithm. People refer to the algorithm a lot when they're talking about SEO, but there's actually more than one algorithm. I break them down in the 100K strategy, but it's not something I believe you should obsess over. For this video, let's focus on optimizing your content. If you're writing, for example, a swashbuckling love story, you'd want your content to come up when people type in pirate romance. I'm going to teach you to optimize your profile and content so it comes up in relevant searches like that. And I say relevant because there's value in targeting a select audience. If you cast your net too widely, you're going to catch the wrong fish. These are people who may not like your genre, your subject matter, or your voice, as in your writing style and your perspective. You want to be targeting people who would actually vibe with your work. Niching down may seem scary, but that's how you find people who actually enjoy your writing. For example, Aparna Verma made so much content about her self-published fantasy novel that it got picked up by a huge traditional publisher. She didn't just market it as fantasy, she marketed it as Indian-led sci-fi fantasy with a slow burn romance and firebending. That is niche. The key things you need to know before optimizing your profile are 1. What do you want to be known for? And 2. What is your perfect audience searching for? Don't just copy what you see other people doing. Their perfect audience is not the same as yours. Maybe. Maybe you want 18 to 25-year-old sci-fi readers, but they want 45-plus-year-old historical romance readers. And maybe they are absolutely killing it on Instagram, 100K followers, but if you copy them, you're drawing in people who might not necessarily care about your writing or your vibes, your content, your tone of voice. And what's the point of that? A lot of people are very resistant to the concept of niching down. You're like, I write about so many things, how can I niche down? To really nail this, I recommend brainstorming words you want to be known for that really identify you and your content. So imagine you're working on this space pirate young adult novel or work in progress. Your brainstorm might look something like this. You may notice I used a few tropes. Whatever your thoughts are on tropes, they're a valuable marketing tool. So see if your writing features any of the popular tropes like enemies to lovers, slow burn romance, magic schools, blah blah blah. You know your genre best. If you have tropes, note them down. Now, you have your keywords. Here's where to put them. Your username, your name, your bio, your captions, your hashtags, and your alt text if relevant. Let's go through all of these one by one. Your username can just be your name, of course, but there's an SEO opportunity here. You may know some travel creators called @travelwithwhoever, @travelwithsarah. You can do the same if you want. @writerjohnsmith, @sci-fi writer Jane. I don't love dots and hyphens in a username. Try your best to keep it punctuation free so it's easier for people to find you using just your username if needed. Something I did not do and regret is also saving that username on other platforms, if you intend to use them later on. Your name is also important. Your Instagram name or nameplate is this bit. Putting keywords here is huge. If you want to read a sci-fi book and you type sci-fi into Instagram, your results suddenly flood with clever sci-fi writers with good SEO. That's what you want. I recommend putting your name followed by a pipe, which is this line thing, and then a couple of keywords. For example, Jane, sci-fi writer, space pirates. Try and hit one broader keyword first that's searched more often, like horror or sci-fi, and also a smaller one so you can attract your perfect audience, like gothic or folk for horror. I wouldn't necessarily recommend aiming for an oversaturated keyword here, like just writer or books, or you might risk being lost in a sea of search results. I will say there are a lot of fantasy and romance writers on Instagram. In these instances, you may need to niche down even more. Romantasy, urban fantasy, and so on. And while we're here, please pick a coherent profile picture. If I see this picture on my mobile phone shrunk down really, really tiny, I need to be able to decipher what it is. What is this, Jane? Help me out here. That's better. On to your bio. I want us to take your bio from this to this. Let me explain why. I understand you want to show who you are in your bio, but you can reflect your voice in a way that's SEO friendly and very readable for new visitors. I would recommend that you don't keyword stuff your bio and instead focus on succinctly communicating who you are in a tone that's reflective of your content. People on social media are hardwired to skim. This is why I like the emoji format of bios. I'll include some examples here, but it's when you use a relevant emoji, kind of like a bullet point. In your tone, explain who you are, what you offer, and preferably a call to action like order on Amazon. For example, let's take Jane. Their bio might say, I write about swashbuckling idiots in space. YA book recs for science fiction nerds. Order now and join the crew, followed by a downwards pointing emoji so people's attention gets drawn to the link in your bio. I recommend only having one link in your bio that leads directly to your Linktree or Amazon page or website. I used to use a free tool called beacons.ai for this. It's not AI, well, I mean, I don't know, it's just like a normal Linktree. Now I use this page that I built myself. You can see there's a certain tone to that sci-fi bio, Jane's. Some people would read that and go, ew, which are probably going to be the same people who would read Jane's novel and give it 1 star on Goodreads or whatever. This is why it's so helpful to attract your perfect reader and then turn away the kind of reader who's just going to hate your work. I always say be as distinctly you as you can from the get-go. I put some checklists and exercises to develop your bio, profile picture, name and all that in the blueprint, but if you're DIYing it, really take some time on this. It's like your storefront if you own a shop on the high street. The things you sell might be so incredible, but if your storefront looks like a hot mess, nobody's coming inside. Also, before the Instagram's not that deep comments come, selling books is some people's livelihoods, and Instagram is a great avenue for selling books and gaining readers. And let's move on to some more SEO tips. Using keywords in your post captions will increase your reach. Many people search phrases, not hashtags, into Instagram's search feature. Keep them relevant to your content. If it's not a meme, don't write memes in your caption. If it's not a tip, don't write tips. You may think that you're casting a wider net, but you're actually making your post harder for Instagram to categorize. If it's easy to categorize, it'll be shown to people who like that sort of thing, which is what you want. Don't stuff your keywords into your caption in a way that's chaotic for human readers. Integrate them naturally. Your captions are a great way to show your personality, your humor, your writing style. Don't waste that on pure SEO. Also, I've seen some advice givers recommend getting AI to write your captions, please write me a caption with the keyword sci-fi novel and space pirates. I know that there are some big accounts who are copy-pasting their content straight from ChatGPT, but I personally think it's very obvious and not really the best look for a writer, but I won't stop you if that's your calling, I guess. On to hashtags, there's some controversy about this. Personally, I recommend 3 to 5 hashtags that are highly relevant to your content and your perfect audience. Here, use keywords that describe your content. Don't put hashtag FYP or hashtag IG writers or whatever. If you're posting a writing meme about your sci-fi novel, maybe consider hashtag writing memes, hashtag sci-fi novel, hashtag sci-fi memes. Should you stay away from big popular hashtags? I don't think so. Definitely experiment, try different things out and see what works, but remember to keep it relevant. Alt text helps people using screen readers to see what's in your post. This helps people who are blind or visually impaired to enjoy your content. If you don't manually add alt text, Instagram will actually generate it for you using object recognition technology, according to their own website. You can add your alt text by clicking accessibility after the filters step of the upload process. I've seen a lot of advice being like, keyword stuff your alt text. When I learnt what alt text was actually used for, that advice sort of left an odd taste in my mouth. So yes, alt text can affect your searchability, but I would caution you to remember its actual purpose and avoid just keyword stuffing it. By the way, if you're finding this content helpful, please do consider giving this video a little like and perhaps subscribing if you're on YouTube, and perhaps giving me a little rating on if you're listening on Spotify or a podcast app. It really, really does help. It's up to you, of course, but I would love for you to stick around and see my next videos and episodes so we can continue talking about writing and occasionally being a little bit odd. No pressure. So, okay, what should you post? On Instagram, you can post 3 main types of content: reels, posts, and stories. You can also do lives and things, but I'm going to focus on these 3. I'll get into the specifics of each type later, but first I want you to remember, post content that your ideal audience wants to see. It sounds obvious, but it's a mistake I see a lot of people making. A lot of writers make the mistake of just posting writing tips or things that other writers will enjoy. And by all means, if you want to post that, I think you absolutely should post that. But first of all, these writing tips that I see are kind of stuff from Google or Pinterest. Actually, some people fully just copy and paste infographics from Pinterest, and I want to say you shouldn't do that because that's someone's hard work and you should, at the very least, credit them. But anyway, to get a big engaged audience, you should be showcasing your unique voice and opinions to build trust. Hot takes also do really well. It's really just about using your voice and creating something special and unique. Secondly, you'd be surprised how many people consume writing tips and want to be a writer who don't actually make the time to read novels. And I'm not trying to criticize them by saying this, but as a writer trying to make it on social media, just know that this type of follower may only care about the value you provide them as an aspiring writer. They don't care about your novel or your writing, which I'm not judging. But if you're trying to build a base of people who want to read your novel, I think you need to keep that in mind. What do your ideal readers want to see? Let's take the YA sci-fi writer. They should not just be posting loads of reviews of their favourite recipe books, unless there's some relevance there and the novel's about like Bake Off in space or something. Post content about sci-fi and pirates. They should be posting sci-fi book recs, a sci-fi bookshelf tour, how they came up with their sci-fi pirates' names, fun reels about famous pirates from the past. Things like that. Things that their dream reader is interested in clicking. If you're a non-fiction writer, you should, I think, post about the topics of your books. For example, I offer interactive workbooks for writers, so my content is all about the process of writing. Self-help writers might post productivity tips, mindfulness writers might post guided meditations, for example. But how do you know what your audience wants to see? Ask yourself and jot these down. What sort of content is doing well within your niche? Do not copy anyone's content, of course. Just see what sort of thing is doing well in your niche or your sub-niche. Is it aesthetic posts, memes, reviews, bookshelf tours, quotes? Just broad strokes, write that down. Then ask yourself, what can I offer that's new and exciting? I always say that it's easier to carve out your own niche than to nudge onto a crowded stage. Innovate. You're a writer. You can innovate. If you're drafting, published, querying, or anywhere in that process, that's a really cool angle to approach things by. What's it been like for you? How can you put your own spin on things? You could make behind the scenes content and give readers a glimpse behind the curtain. You can share exclusive quotes from your novel, your writing routine, your desk setup, memes about your work, like, I don't know, POV, you walk into the sword fight and you're wearing a ball gown. I don't know what you're writing. If you're stuck, I have a fun little hack. Go on Pinterest, Google, and Instagram and do a few little searches, like YA sci-fi and pirate sci-fi, for example. The drop-down results will give you some ideas for posts. One of the Google results was sci-fi pirate name generator, and that's a great idea. Make a reel like, find your sci-fi pirate name, and at the end, reveal your characters' names in your sci-fi pirate novel, available in Amazon. Link in bio, la la. Another thing you can post is community building content. Review the novel of an author within your niche. They'll probably share it to their story, exposing your account to their fans. I almost always reshare content when people post about my interactive writing workbooks like this. I can see in my metrics that hundreds and sometimes thousands of you guys click through my story to view the original post that I've been tagged in and reshared. Only do this if you actually enjoy someone's work though. I would never tell you to suck up to anyone or be disingenuous. Whenever you create content, ask yourself, why would someone click on this initially? And why would someone care enough about this to keep reading? Personally, I break down my posts into two types. I'm going to use some potentially corny Don Draper type names here, so they are growth and retention. Growth content is designed to be shared or to capture attention, get clicks. This tends to be quick, attention-grabbing content. Faceless content can do great here, as do memes made on the app CapCut, which is what I use. You say algorithm bait, I say a fun chance to be silly and messy. Another thing that works great for growth content is controversial opinions, hot takes. See, nobody cares yet about your writing. You've got to hook them in with something. Do you write, for example, regal medieval fantasy? Make a quick flashy reel about the medieval fantasy aesthetic using a trending sound, or make a meme about medieval court life. I would recommend you to target voracious readers more than other writers, like I've mentioned, because these are the people that are actually going to read your work one day. Make content that's relatable to them, like when you put yourself in a book buying van and the new medieval fantasy novel comes out. The next is retention content. So retention content is why people stick around and follow you. Really show your personality, engage your community, provide value, promote your writing. Carousels, vlogs, reels where you're talking directly to the camera, all of these do really well with this. Is your writing funny? Be funny. Is your writing educational? Post tips. Do you write short stories? Show us your process. This type of content tends to be longer and it tends to get shown more to your existing audience than to new people, generally. Obviously, there's exceptions. You may wonder where the value in that is because maybe you just want to grow and grow and grow, but trust me, it's extremely important. It's what builds trust and promotes your product eventually. Most people don't just see a meme and decide they care about your novel and pre-order. Books can be expensive and time-consuming to read. People's TBR lists are massive. The retention content is what can slowly convert a curious follower into a reader. So, take the medieval fantasy example. People come from broad appeal reels like this. They get curious because you're posting about a niche that they care about. They click onto your profile and they see the retention content. You're providing value, book lists, behind the scenes content, recommendations, tips, and you're also promoting your book. So you can see how both steps of this plan, growth and retention, are important. I want to focus first on your growth content. Personally, I think the easiest way to reach new viewers is by short, trendy, and some would say viral reels. Before I get into my viral reels quote unquote formula, I want to dip into the whole question of whether you should be heavily inspired by other people's content. I think two people can accidentally come up with the same idea at the same time, but Instagram is rife with people taking extremely heavy inspiration from other creators. Like the YouTube creator H Bomber Guy said in that 3-hour plagiarism video, if you have an original idea, if it's good, it won't be yours for long. I want to tell you why I think copying is not sensible beyond the hopefully obvious ethics conversation. If you're mutuals with a big account, you'll benefit from Instagram pushing your content to their followers. Mutuals means you're both following each other. If you copy a big account, or a small account, they will notice. Even if your following is tiny and theirs is massive, people will send that account your content with a message to them being like, this is eerily similar to your post. And then that big account, or famous-ish author, or whoever, won't want to follow you. So I would say, beyond the hopefully obvious ethical stuff, stay away from plagiarism and overly heavy inspiration that borders on making people uncomfortable. Be original, we're writers, we can do it. And if you do take heavy inspiration, I think that's fine and normal. Give credit where it's needed because you really do benefit from building an amicable network. Okay, now here's what you came for, reels. So be aware of people who tell you that there's like a secret hack that's going to make your reels go viral. There's certainly a formula that I use to get my reels to blow up, but it doesn't work every time. There are a lot of factors at play and I would never sell you hot air. Also, what performs well changes fairly often, and if it does, if you've purchased the Instagram Growth Kit, I will be sending updates by email for free, but just know that it can and does change. Until then, I wanted to tell you what's working right now in 2024, currently. Short, punchy content. And I'm not saying that's the only type of reel you should make, but that's the type of reel I would make if I needed or wanted to go viral. There's a lot of fuss made about making a looping 3-second video with text that says, read more in caption, but I think people are getting really sick of this now. It's easy to make as a creator, but a lot of viewers these days regard it as lazy or a cheap trick to boost views. Do it if you want to. I've done it before in the past too, but it's not what I'm going to focus on in this video, and I also don't make them anymore. Personally, I like 3 types of growth content. Funny content, a bunch of text on screen during a looping video, and aesthetic content. So for funny content, as I mentioned, I use CapCut, but a lot of writers show themselves on camera acting out viral sounds. I recommend the latter because if you come up on someone's explore page twice showing your face, they might remember your face and be like, oh hey, that person was pretty funny, and then follow you. There's less brand building if you use CapCut memes, but some of us are shy. Keep it relevant to your book or your niche. I recommend jotting down whenever you have a frustration or an observation about your niche, and then come back to the list when you're making memes. I use an app called To Do, and I put a widget on my home screen, and whenever I have an idea, I just write something in that. It's better than using Instagram for inspiration because it means that your content is more original and niche, and it also avoids accidental copying. The bunch of text on screen technique is pretty much just what it says on the tin, so I won't bore you. I'll play one here by the fabulous Anna New. It encourages looping because it takes a while to read all that text, meaning that your watch time metrics are higher, but it doesn't go into the whole read more in caption thing that people are becoming increasingly hostile to. Finally, the aesthetic video. A writer who does this really well is Max Francis, who makes these absolutely gorgeous aesthetic edits of his dark academia novel. Great sources of photos are Your Own Camera Album, Carousels.com, and Unsplash. I think a lot of people take videos from Pinterest as well, but I'm not 100% sure how allowed this is, especially when it's so hard to accurately source the original photographers of the Pinterest posts. I don't know. I guess you could credit them in the caption if you can find their original page. I don't know how this works. Unsplash, Canva, and Pexels all have stock images that you're free to use. Some of them are paywalled, but some of them are free, so you can just use them in anything you want. So once you have this short 3 to 5 second clip of whatever, look for a sound. Scroll through the Reels tab while looking at the sounds that everyone's using. If it has an upwards diagonal right arrow next to it, click the sound, and see how many uses it has. Now, okay, I see a lot of well-meaning advice about this. People say, you must pick a sound with less than 2,000 uses. or whatever number. Some people say 5,000, some people say 10. There's some truth to this, but let me break it down a bit more for you. If you use the sound when it has, for example, 2,000 uses and it grows to 100,000 uses, your video will be pushed with the tide and get a bunch of views. Your video benefits from momentum. However, if you use a sound with 2,000 uses and it grows to 2,300 uses, you don't really gain very much from that. It doesn't move very much. So what matters more isn't the number of uses it has, under 2,000 or whatever, but the potential it has to grow. Does that make sense? So 10,000 to 100,000 is more valuable than 2,000 to 2,300. So it's not the amount of uses a reel has that's the important factor, it's the potential to make a big wave and to grow. If you join a huge wave late-ish, you'll still travel further than you would have if you joined a small wave early. I think the reason that people say to use a sound with under 2,000 views is because it can be hard to predict which waves will be big and which ones will be small, so it's, I guess, playing it safe. But I think you can kind of predict it. So how do you know a sound is going to blow up? Well, okay, you can't 100% get it right every single time, but there are some good signs. So if the sound is already viral on TikTok, or if you look at the sound and there are videos from a week ago or sooner with 1 million views. If this is exhausting to you, I get it, and don't put too much thought into it. I know it can be pretty boring, so just focus on whichever parts of the strategy you enjoy. Otherwise, it's going to be unsustainable. Although I did say don't use the read more format, I still think that your caption is a nice place to put extra information. Tell a personal story, share a process, give actionable steps. People love storytelling. You can also use it to ask questions, leading to engagement and interesting comments. If you have the option to create polls, use it. It's a very easy way to get engagement, and it's fun. Finally, pick 3 to 5 relevant hashtags and you're good to go. I go way deeper into creating reels in the blueprint, and I give a lot of guidance and ideas. Remember, the important thing isn't creating one magical reel that's going to go super viral and change your life. The important thing is consistency, experimentation, and the ability to analyze what's working for you and adapt. That was just growth type reels. I think reels are extremely strong for growth, and I mostly use them for that. So I'm going to move on now to carousel strategies. Carousels work like a sandwich. Your value-packed content comes packaged between 2 thin slices, title and CTA. CTA stands for call to action. So the title card is attention grabbing. If you see it on the explore page, you want to click on it. It's visually interesting. It's competing against all the other beautiful posts on your screen in a tiny square, so it's got to stand out. Don't just be visually interesting, make your title card reflective of what your carousel is about and your brand in a snappy way. So look at these examples. You can really get a sense of what you're in for just by looking at these titles. They're really reflective of your niche, your writing, your content. If you have a branding sheet or kit, use this when you're designing your carousels. So what should be in the sandwich filling? Well, this could be educational content, behind the scenes content, quotes from your writing, product recommendations, books you've been loving, apps you enjoy. The sky is the limit. I'll put some ideas on screen and you can screenshot if you want. Remember, keep it relevant to your niche. If you cast a wide net, you're going to catch people who just aren't interested in what you're writing or saying. Always think of who you're trying to attract when you make content. Have fun, mix things up here and there, but make sure that your core content is targeting your perfect audience member, your perfect reader usually. For example, I post writing tips, not book recommendations, because I'm trying to attract writers, not readers, who aren't interested in writing. Of course, some readers are interested in writing, but readers who aren't interested in writing would have zero interest in my workbooks, which is fair enough, but they're not my perfect audience. We need to target our perfect audience, our ideal reader. Finally, it's often helpful to end the carousel with a CTA. I like to send people to my website to read my blog, grab these free downloads, or check out my workbooks. My workbooks have some incredibly lovely reviews, so I like to end with those. If your novel has Amazon reviews, you can use those. You can also use like a snippet of your writing if you've got a newsletter. Just be clear on where people should go. Link in bio or comment X if you're using an automation like ManyChat. By the way, on this topic, I asked my audience whether people prefer the CTA link in bio or comment freebie and I'll DM you a link. Don't take this as gospel, this is just a poll of a couple thousand people. Instagram is predicted to hit 1.4 billion users this year, so a couple thousand is just a small slice of that. So ManyChat is an app that lets you create an automation. So you can say in your content, comment freebie and I'll DM you my freebie. And then people will comment and then it's really easy because the automation just, boom, sends them whatever you want. People like it because it's automatic, obviously, but it also gives you more engagement because people are commenting because they have to. Personally, I prefer my comment section to be full of real engagement and real conversations rather than people trying to activate a bot, but it is an option that you can consider, and it's an option that lots of people use. I also really enjoy it when people mess with the bot. I don't know if that's really terrible of me. I don't do it, but anyway. This is not the only way to do carousels. You can also do the photo dump format, which I love, which is where you share tidbits of your life, including screenshots from your notes app or quotes from your novel. You can even stick some videos in there. An account called Paper Fury makes carousels compiling their tweets. You can see how niche this is. They write foresty YA horror. Okay, so this next one is not a writing account at all, but I really enjoy the way that @Mia in France uses carousels to combine photo content and information. I think this would work so well for a writer. My top 10 writing essentials, 5 quotes from my novel, and so on. To make my carousels, I use Canva Pro, which costs about 100 quid a year. I know it's expensive, but depending on your job, you might be able to ask your boss for it for free. A lot of marketers, for example, get Canva Pro through work. There is a free version of Canva too, but you're very limited in the graphics and features you can use. The free template library is also limited, but I personally make my own designs, so that doesn't really factor in for me. I use Pro because of features like the absolutely massive graphics library, which you can see I make good use of in my posts. I'm not sponsored, God, I wish. Also, I like to use the stock photos and stock videos, and the Pro library is massive. Other apps you can use include Adobe Express and PixArt on mobile. I've got a big fat carousels tutorial in the blueprint, but we're short on time, so let's move on to stories. Some people say that you should share your posts to your stories. I used to do this, and I'll tell you why I stopped. Your stories only really get seen by your most engaged followers. They'll likely see your post on their feed anyway. I have about 280k on Insta, and my stories rarely surpass 20k views. This is normal, by the way. Like, as your account gets bigger, your engagement gets proportionally smaller. Don't let this discourage you, it is very normal. If your most engaged followers see that you're just using your stories to reshare your posts, chances are that they will eventually stop clicking, and then Instagram will just eventually stop showing them your stories. Story views do count as real views as in Instagram Reels, if you reshare your reel to your story. But if you do choose to reshare your reels, just include an extra tidbit like a behind the scenes shot or something, so it's not just a reshared reel. On stories, people's thumbs are primed for clicking, so only your really, really, really loyal audience members are going to stop and read text walls. Most people don't have the patience. If they see you just constantly posting like absolute essays on your Instagram story, they will just stop opening them. Maybe you're fine with that, I won't tell you not to be, but instead, I like to use stories to share polls, digestible tips, announcements, or Q&As. I think stories are a good form of community building. If you show your face, you can share little selfies and desk pics. The best way is to share content that comes off as exclusive, quote unquote. People might stumble upon your profile from the Explore page or the Reels tab and just be curious, but not enough to follow. But then they tap on your story and they see this quote unquote exclusive content, and they might follow you just so they don't miss a disappearing story. Now, I want to talk about branding. Is branding really that important? Well, I think it is, and in 2 big ways. The first is recognizability. Imagine you saw one of my posts and just kind of liked my tone and my content, but you didn't follow me. Just kidding. Well, Instagram might send another one of my posts to your Explore page. I have a pretty consistent style with neutral colours and a big bubble font. If this comes up on your Explore page, you know it's me, I think. This gives you a second chance to bring that person onto your page, and then maybe they'll follow you this time, because there's 2 posts and they kind of liked the first one and then they liked the second one. So I'm aware that people can just copy this, so I think if you're comfortable showing your face, that's ideal, but I'm shy. Maybe one day. The other reason is vibe. Instagram is a very visual platform. You will not drop dead if you skip this, but you will definitely benefit from creating content that aesthetically aligns with your vibe. If you write fairy tale fantasy stories, curate a fairy tale fantasy aesthetic, for example. Look at these 2 example posts. If I love fantasy and hate sci-fi, which of these posts am I going to click on? You can really convey a lot of information with colours, fonts, and the images that you choose to use. Early on, when I first started out in like October 2022, my posts looked like this. Not visually distinct, not super professional, quite bland. It doesn't even really stick out on the Explore page. I made myself a little branding sheet and I stuck to it. It really helped to create a cohesive aesthetic. You may think that the old layout looks better, but the one on the right is the one that performs better, which is what's really important. So here's another example of an account that I think does this well. You can see how they post a mix of reels and carousels and a mix of colours, but everything follows their branding. You obviously don't need to do this. Making a branding sheet really helped me, and the blueprint goes into how you can put one together for yourself too. You can steal my exact template on Canva and drag and drop your images and fonts in over mine. And I also put together a bunch of palettes and fonts. It's all included, it's all free when you get the kit. If you don't want to be that thorough, no judgment, I want to give options to everyone, so here's what you can do. First, write a few words that describe your book and your content. Adjectives, nouns, whatever, go crazy. If you're writing a book on mindfulness, you might use words like clean, simple, uncluttered. If you're writing a swashbuckling sci-fi, hi Jane Smith, you might use words like celestial, adventurous, ship, compass. Okay, now go into Pinterest and type one of these words followed by colour scheme or colour palette. Type in a few, cross-reference them. Which colours come up often? I typed adventure colour palette and I scrolled a bit and I got these. Another cool palette app is called coolers.co. You can generate a palette from an image. What I then do once I've got a palette is I pick a dark colour, a light colour and a fun accent colour. You can see this in my School of Plot posts. You can throw a few cohesive colours in there for sure, but I think these three are a good starting place. Bonus points if these colours look anything like your book covers or your latest book. You may notice my branding is pretty consistent between my posts and my interactive writing workbook covers. Obviously, I use a wider colour palette than just these three colours, but if you want to DIY it yourself, I think this is a really easy trick to generate a palette that is useful for your social media. Now you have a palette that you like, that accurately communicates your brand or your stories, go into Canva and paste that palette into your carousel design. Let's say you pick a palette from my kit. Screenshot it, paste it, right-click it, and press Apply Colours to Page until you're happy. The other thing is font. Your font choice can signal you as quirky, serious, futuristic, romantic. The world is your oyster. If you're stuck, have a look at book covers and film posters in your own niche and Google things like medieval font or cowboy font, whatever works and is legible even when shrunk down really small. So 2 examples, one of them is hard to read and the other one has a similar vibe but is easier to read. You can see how that works with the medieval fantasy example. You don't have to be super strict with yourself. You can see how this profile grid isn't obsessively curated, but the medieval witchy fantasy romance brand is very much present. Okay, let's talk about monetization. A lot of time and effort goes into writing and also content creation. I think monetization can be considered a bit of a dirty word in creative spaces, but I truly believe that it's okay to want fair, honest compensation for your time and work on your content, novel, newsletter, or whatever it may be. It's also something that could be really helpful on your self-publishing journey if you choose to go indie. Editors, cover designers, and whatnot are not cheap, rightfully, I think. They work very hard. So yes, what I'm saying is, I think it's okay for creatives to get paid. If you have a writing account, you might want to take sponsorships. There are 2 main ways to make money from your Instagram, and I'm going to cover both of them. The first is sponsored content. There's a huge misconception that you need like 5,000 followers to get sponsored posts by brands. You absolutely can get sponsored with far less, although maybe the rates will be lower than thousands of pounds or whatever. I'm going to explain how it works. I've done sponsorships with brands like Scrivener, Effie, and BookBeat. I'm lucky enough to be able to only work with brands that I think are cool and relevant to my audience. I reached out to all these brands myself. I was happy to have broken a record of customer signups for my BookBeat collaboration. Also, they told me in an email, and my Scrivener collaboration has led to loads of really positive comments from people who had considered Scrivener but didn't really know some of the cool features that they offer. Admittedly, my digital marketing background did help, but you can see how collaborations are mutually beneficial for you, the brand, and also your audience, their potential customers. Because sometimes brands actually also offer you a discount code or a free trial for your followers. So if you pick actual good, helpful product, your audience won't feel taken advantage of, I think. But also, I do think in 2024, there's more of an understanding that creatives need to eat. So I doubt anyone's going to call you a sellout for doing a BookBeat partnership. What I did to get these sponsorships was once I found a brand I liked, I tried to find their marketing team's contact email using Google. Try these searches. If I couldn't find anything, I would just DM the official page and ask for a marketing contact. I have all the DM scripts and stuff in the blueprint. Once I got the marketing contact, I would email them. I would introduce myself, I would say what I liked about their product, and I would give some ideas of how I think we should work together. I've included my exact emails in the kit, as well as a template for you to do your own brand outreach if you want. I've found loads of sample templates online when I was first doing this, and I had mixed feelings. I used my experience in digital marketing to refine them into a really solid email that makes the brand's job as easy as possible, meaning they're more likely to say yes to my offer. Something I also sent them was my media kit. This is a nice little document with my stats, including the demographics of my followers, hi Americans, and my engagement rate, among other things. I'm aware this video is long enough already, but basically your media kit is just a couple of pages summarizing who you are so that brands can see whether or not you're a good fit. You don't need to wait until your follower count is really high to do this. One thing your media kit should contain is your engagement rate. Huge accounts tend to have lower engagement rates, like I mentioned. Small ones tend to have higher engagement rates, which is really valuable for brands. You can find this information about yourself on a site called Social Blade. Brands value high engagement rates, so I think you should really be including this in your media kit. Here's mine. I included the exact template in my Instagram growth kit, uncensored, so you can make your own by dragging and dropping your visuals and statistics into it and sending it off to brands. What nobody told me was what happens after the first email when they accept your offer. You'll discuss rates, then produce a draft of your post. When the brand approves the draft, you'll generate an invoice for them and then you'll send that to them. Then they'll pay it and then you'll post, or you'll post and then they'll pay it. Could be either order. After that, you'll send a follow-up email with analytics and you'll ask for a testimonial. I had to figure all of this out on my own, which was pretty messy. I wasn't doing things right in the beginning because I had no idea how things worked on the creator side, and I ended up doing work that I never got paid for because I didn't do things in the order that I just told you, and I skipped the invoice step and agreed to go straight for PayPal. Do not get snaked. I know this can be quite overwhelming, so I included my entire email sequence in the blueprint, so you can literally just copy and paste that. I've also showed you how to create an invoice. You'll see the exact emails from the 1st to the 5th that I sent as part of a real past big brand collaboration. I didn't include their replies, of course, because that would violate their privacy, but I briefly summed them up to give you context as you read through the email chain. Please be aware that a lot of brands will try and lowball you, especially if you're new. They may offer a price that is way below what your service is worth and way below what they would be spending on social media ads if they paid for them. I'm guilty of taking a really low offer just because I didn't want to let an opportunity slip. But in reality, if you know what you're worth and you set your rates accordingly, people will pay you what you're worth. I've never charged $1,000 for a post, but to be honest, it's because I stopped taking sponsorships pretty early on in my journey to focus on promoting my workbooks because they make me really proud. If a brand tries to lowball you, say, the industry standard for an account my size and with my engagement rate is, and then give an accurate number that you've researched. It can change, so I didn't include any. Ask them if they could possibly accommodate that, and they'll likely say yes, unless they're a very small business. If they say no, that's fair. If one brand says no, another brand will say yes, so don't feel like you've missed your shot. Okay, another way of making money on Instagram is to sell. Usually you would be selling your writing, your novel, or your services. Even if you don't have a novel out though, you can have a paid newsletter on Substack, for example. Plenty of authors do this. It's a free newsletter platform where you can send people your writing, short stories, poems, articles, whatever you fancy, and you can do this for free, or you can keep some things behind a paywall for your subscribers only. By the way, if you need a trick to never run out of short story ideas, I have a video with my method on this channel, so just have a look at 2 episodes back. You can also make money on sites like Medium if you have enough traffic, which you can get from your thriving Instagram account. Or you can use Patreon to send short stories out to your patrons, or you can even make and sell your own zines and chapbooks. By the way, I predict zines are going to have a real comeback the way vinyl did, so if you want to be early, there you go. I will say it's a pretty crowded market out there. There are a lot of writers, so hopefully you've taken my advice and really found your perfect audience who loves your voice. That is what is really going to help you to stand out. For example, I read a lot of whimsical, funny, fairy tale fantasy, so I am way more likely to pay for your content if you target whimsical fantasy fans than if you cast a broader net, just fantasy. That could be anything. So you can also sell your services as a book cover designer, an editor, beta reader, copywriter, content writer, or anything you enjoy and have experience doing. If you don't have experience, you can take on some free work for friends and family or for local charities just to develop a portfolio. You could also sell a product. This is a lot harder and more expensive than getting a sponsorship, but it's a fun option. I really recommend something different to what's already on the market. It's easier to carve out your own niche, like I said, than to compete with brands with hundreds of reviews and fans. See what's new. What can you do that's new? I sell workbooks. Some people sell cute apparel or stickers. You could also consider tote bags, bookmarks, tea blends, scented candles, stickers, zines, bookish posters, pre-made cover designs, and so on. And of course, your novel. I think another thing with products is that if you pick your own thing, it improves your ability to network. People often avoid promoting, following, or even sometimes interacting with their direct quote-unquote competition, but they'll happily boost someone who's doing something new and fresh. Plus, writers hate copycats. What does perform well and what people respond really well to are innovative products that actually do something to make your life or your home or your wardrobe a little bit nicer. I would really advise you to really take some time on it, not just slap something together. Making a product takes months and money, but if you have an innovative idea, it's worth it. If not, sponsorships pay really well if you're good at getting them, and there are tons of ways to monetize. If you want more information about monetization, sponsorships, services, and products, I've got a whole section about that in the blueprint, including a bunch of ideas. I'm aware how long this video is getting, so I'd like to answer your most frequently asked questions now. How often should you post? Not necessarily every day. Post 3 to 7 times a week to your feed, so carousels, static posts, and reels. Anything in the 3 to 7 range is fine. Whatever works best for you. I would say 5 is nice. There are some months where I have a lot of free time and I can post almost daily. I really enjoy making posts, so this is fun for me. However, there are other months where I'm busy or I'm tired, where I post 3 times a week. This gives me more time to really engineer my content to go viral-ish. A content creator I really like called Book Till Dawn has said in a reel that a Meta worker told her that 3 times a week is a good minimum baseline. And anecdotally, I've seen this work well for lots of creators, including myself. If you post loads, then you do risk sacrificing your content's quality. I think this is why some people lean so heavily on ChatGPT. I don't recommend this for writers. Plus, if you post every day, your post might get lost or not be seen, or people might see it as spammy and unfollow, so it's not necessarily better. What's the ideal time to post? So I see a lot of advice saying, look at the peak times when your followers are active through your account insights. This means you can schedule your posts to an optimal time. I don't especially agree with this advice. I think the best time to post is whenever you're free to respond to the initial comments. So for me, that's during my lunch break at work. Responding to your initial comments is not only a fun way to chat with your most engaged audience members. Personally, my audience is really funny, so that's always really fun for me. But it also shows Instagram that there's a big boost in engagement just as your post is up, which is great. When you first post, Instagram shows your post to a small slice of your audience. If they respond well, so more clicks, more engagement, then your post gets pushed to more people. If you reply to your commenters, it could start a conversation where they reply and then more people chip in and then you reply and then they reply. That's why I would suggest posting when you're free. Instagram is a global platform. Someone will be awake in some time zone and you'll be free to chat with them. Keep in mind that the main purpose of Instagram is community. Well, I don't know if it's the main purpose, but it's the most fun purpose. Don't just chat to mine your audience for engagement. Boosting the algorithm should be a nice side effect, not the main reason that you're talking to these real, actual human beings. Which language should I post in? Which language is your book in? You want to get an audience who can actually read your book or your writing. Aside from that, English is often treated as the default language on the internet. Whatever your thoughts on that are, it makes English a convenient language to post in. For example, imagine you write your post in Swedish. You limit your audience to people who speak Swedish. If you write in English, you really increase your potential to grow. However, if your book is in another language, or if you don't feel comfortable speaking English, please don't feel pressured to. You can still grow. It's something to keep in mind, not something that should stress you out or limit you. How do you find time to post? I do it in my lunch break. If I don't have time one day, I just don't post. You really don't need to post every day. People say to batch your posts and schedule them. It's good advice. I don't take it for myself. I do it at work. For my own page, I like to adapt my content to what you guys want to see and what I'm in the mood to chat about. You can also recycle your old content from months and months ago and update it with new recommendations or news. How do you get post ideas? To be honest, I have a large enough following that I just open up a question box on my story sometimes and take your requests. However, I'm going to show you some ways to get post ideas. I'll be brief because I realize this video is so long. 1. Answer the public. This is a website where you can see the most frequently asked questions in your niche. It works better for non-fiction writers than fiction writers, because non-fiction writers' content is more educational. The website is also more for SEO purposes, but you can get some ideas. 2. Trends. Take part in trends if you feel like they apply to your story. See if you can adapt a trend to your characters or your world or your plot lines. 3. Daily life. If you create content about your daily life and your struggles and wins as a writer, you'll never run out of ideas. Don't necessarily frame it like me, but rather give people an exclusive peek behind the scenes in the life of you, a writer. 4. Your writing and your book. People won't pay to subscribe to your Substack if they don't know if your writing is their vibe or not, so post samples. I'm not a lawyer, so this is not legal advice, but I believe your work is protected. The blueprint gives you a whole bunch of customizable post ideas tailored to writers, and it also helps you to generate content that fits in the buckets of education, inspiration, promotion, and entertainment. Something I prioritize in all my workbooks is giving you a lot of guidance and resources and a very, very structured process. I hate workbooks that are basically just empty spaces to fill in yourself with generic advice, so I made sure this is absolutely jam-packed with value and structure. You'll also get my Notion template, my Media Kit template, the brand kit template, a bunch of color palettes and fonts for your content, and everything is there. So you can just start right away. So here's your plan, stripped down. Basically, if you're starting an Instagram account, here's what I would do. 1. Create a new account separately from your personal account. Make it a creator or business account so you can access insights, preferably a creator account. Instagram recommends profiles to people with similar interests to your existing followers, so make sure your friends and family, if they're following you, actually enjoy bookish content and actually interact with bookish content. Next, set up your SEO-friendly profile from the tips that I've already provided. 3. Spend a bit of time on your branding, as mentioned before. 4. Decide on which days you want to post. Let's say Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I recommend a mix of carousels, static posts, and reels. You could, for example, do reels Monday and Friday and a carousel on Wednesday. 5. Start creating and posting a mix of growth and retention content. Don't tag people or brands unless you actually mention them in the post, as this is spam. I did this in my first week and it was a massive social blunder and super embarrassing. A really big writergram influencer was like, don't tag me in your content, and fair enough. 6. Consume, like, and share content in your niche. If you're a sci-fi writer, follow other sci-fi writers and sci-fi book reviewers and sci-fi bookstagrammers without expecting them to follow you back. Most of them won't. That's not why you're doing this. Maybe you'll even have 0 followers at this point, and that's okay. Now start leaving thoughtful comments on other people's posts. Engage with the post, leave supportive and funny comments like the kind you'd want on your own posts. Don't use this as an opportunity to just show off or one-up people with your superior taste and knowledge. Just be your charming, witty self. People will see your comment, chuckle, and notice sci-fi writer in your name, and they'll click on your profile if they're interested. I would really urge you to lead with positivity here. And don't say, please check out my content on other people's posts, because again, this is spammy. If people like your comment, they will come to you if they want to. 7. Keep posting. Consistency doesn't mean posting every day, it means sticking to your schedule. Don't give up. Your 5th post might blow up, or your 50th. If your content still isn't gaining traction, even though you're following all my advice, reassess. Take a look at your profile and ask yourself, can I read this font? Is this visually appealing and cohesive? Is my content engaging? Is my content valuable? If the answer is no, make changes and keep going. I had to tweak my content a lot along my journey, especially in the beginning. You might need to as well. Don't give up, keep innovating and growing. And keep going. It's okay to take days off, and if this stops being fun, just be a little looser with it. I know it can seem pretty overwhelming, but it's a pretty simple plan and I believe in you. If you want some help growing your writergram, please check out my links below, and I really hope this was helpful. If it was, please do subscribe. Comment any questions you may have down below and I will try my best to answer them. Bye bye!